Okay, so next is our thumb tab here. So again, this thumb tab is built based on right or left hand orientation. So if we take our palm plate and lay it down like so, like we're looking at the back of our hand, since this is the right hand, the thumb tab is over here on the left side, we can kind of lay out the tab accordingly. The tab sticking out from the hand this way. Now, on the tab, you'll notice the curved slots are narrower on one side than the other. The narrow side goes down when you're laying out this tab. And with the narrow side pointing down, these little brackets are going to point up because we're building this as if it's going to get attached up under here. So laying like this, this tab looks similar to the other one. The thumb ones fits on that side pointing up. And then this tab is actually a double-sided tab. And what you'll see is one side's got a smaller hole, one side's got a bigger hole. That smaller hole is actually going to go down. So we're going to take our part. And now this little piece actually presses over the end of the black part. So we'll just press it in here like this. This one gets a little confusing sometimes. Okay. So when we're finished with our tab, small side facing down, bracket facing left, should have the two large hole tabs facing up and the one small hole tab facing down in this orientation. And there's some pictures of it in the exploded view, so you can reference those on how it goes together. But basically we're looking like that. Now, before we start gluing it up, you can see we just take it and it sits over top of the two tabs on the hand right there. So you can see how that's going to go together. So when you get all finished, you want to make sure that they fit. What I like to do is I like to start with the side that's has the tab for the ball joint. So I just kind of press it on there, and we glue the plastic stuff just like we glue up the wood. You simply take it, assemble it, and then run a little glue in there. The glue goes a little bit further on here because it doesn't absorb into the wood like it does on the other parts. So you may end up with a little extra glue there. You can tend to put that anywhere. Geez, I have nothing within reach here. Sometimes a little bit too much glue, I'll take a notepad or a piece of paper and I'll just kind of drag it across there and pull off a little bit of that extra glue. That part's on there. Now let's glue the other tab, and again I want to look straight down on it and make sure the tab is creating a good 90-degree angle and a square to the other parts. So once we got it in place, you can just kind of run a little tab of glue on here. Again, you'll find that the glue goes a lot farther on these parts because it doesn't absorb directly into the so again, a little piece of paper sometimes works nicely to kind of just spread that glue around. You don't want to leave any big piles or puddles of it because that'll affect how everything fits together. You'll also notice that the glue makes the part shiny again where you put it on there versus had kind of dulled out from when we sanded it. So you can come back and do a second round of sanding on here if you prefer the dull look versus the shiny look. And again, I'm just going to use my paper, kind of wick out that extra super glue, keep everything clean. One thing you can also do is if you have a piece of paper, you can just kind of tap it against the paper, and that gravity pulls off your extra glue. Okay, and those parts will have welded together. Okay. Alright, again, make sure it's all nice and dry. Okay, so obviously you can see the two large tabs are just going to align straight over there. Make sure it's a good fit. Make sure it slides on there, rotates nicely. If for some reason this fit is not real clean and tight, you can take your sanding pad and just kind of run the part on here like this and open up that spacing. Just basically sand those parts down a little. Sometimes it's easier to use a nail file but you just kind of work that spacing until these two pieces fit together nicely. So, put them together. This little tab for your ball joint will be sticking up, like so. Okay, so next thing we can do is we can start, we can basically mount this little thumb tab here. So we're going to get out our hardware bag. I'm going to dump out our hardware, trying not to let anything run away. Okay, so the first thing I like to do is go ahead and put the ball on the tab. So now, you'll find one of these little Delrin balls in here, like we found in all the other fingers. What's different about this one, though, is it has not been flatted, and it has a larger hole through the middle of it. Now, that larger hole is going to accommodate a 172 screw. So in our hardware kit, we can kind of look at what we have here. We've got our two 440 screws that we're going to use to mount as the pivots, and those two screws have these two larger lock nuts on them. We'll have these two small 256 screws. Now you'll notice there's going to be 3 of these small screws, but if you look closely, one of them is slightly smaller than the other two. So that's going to be your 172 screw. That's the one that we're going to use over here with the ball. You'll have a little threaded rod. That's the center of our link rod. You'll have your ball, steel ball, that goes on the servo. You may or may not have this long binding post. This post is, again, for the wrist pivot. So if you don't have it and you're just building a hand, that is fine. It's only used in the wrist parts when we put those together in a little bit. Now, where this hardware gets a little tricky is you've got these 4 small nuts. And at first glance, they look very similar to each other, and it's hard to kind of designate which is which. First thing you can do is take a good look at them, and you'll notice 2 of them have a much larger hole in the middle of them than the other 2. So we know that those 2 with the larger hole, those are going to be our 440. So they're going to slide over here with these 2 screws. And then we're going to be left with 2 smaller screws. Now, one of these is a 2mm, one of them is a 172. And the way you can tell the difference is if you pick each of them up and you actually look at them on the edge from the side, the one for the 172 is thinner than the one for the 2mm. So the thinner of the 2 nuts goes with the 172 screw that we're about to use. So you can set the thicker of the nut away with the ball. That's the side that goes on the servo. All right, so take the 172. You're going to pass, whoop. Okay, I've recovered the runaway ball. Again, be careful with these little guys. That ball gets rolling, it's hard to find. All right, so we're going to take our 172 screw and we're going to put it through the center of the ball, like so. And then that 172 screw will pass from the inside, or basically this side of the thumb bracket. You're going to put that screw right through that hole. And depending on super glue, could have got in there, made this hole a little small. Sometimes you just got to take your wrench and kind of screw it through there. Okay. And then we'll take our nut, again, the thinner of the 2, and we'll just screw it on the back side of that. So basically you're tightening this guy down. Then I'll take a pair of pliers and, sorry, fumble fingers today. Hold that in there and then just kind of tighten that nut down. Okay. So that places the ball on the wishbone, and basically this is what drives the thumb in and out. Okay. Next, we can go ahead and assemble our link rod. You're going to use the short little piece of all thread and the 2 rod ends. Again, I like to just start by screwing it small stuff. Screwing it on one side a little bit. Get in there. There it goes. Once I get it started on one side, I'll get the other one and start it on the other side. Just kind of work them. They'll eventually start down there. And then once you got them both started, you can use one or the other to kind of tighten them down in.